the verses of Holy Quran, I will request to Khatib Oslo, Maulana Nemat Ali Shah sir, for recitation of Holy Quran. Maulana Nemat Ali Shah sir.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه فنعمه ويقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه ويقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي صدق الله العظيم. पढ़ी गई आयात मुक़द्दसा का मफ़हूम कुछ इस तरह है। शुरू अल्लाह के नाम से जो बड़ा मेहरबान नहायत रहम वाला है। जब इंसान पर उसका रब फजल फरमाता है, उसे इज्जतों से नवाजता है, तो वो बोल उठता है कि खुदा ने मुझे बड़ा इज्जत मर्तबा और मुकाम अता फरमाया। और जब उस पर आजमाइश का वक्त आता है और उसमें रिस्क में कुछ कमी की जाती है, तो फिर बोलता है कि मुझे मेरे रब ने जलील कर दिया। ऐसी हरगिज़ बात नहीं, बल्कि वजह इसकी ये है कि खुशहाली के दिनों में उसने यतीम की तकरीम और इज्जत नहीं दी और मस्कीन को खाना खिलाने की तरगीब नहीं दी। कोई बात नहीं, जब ज़मीन पाश पाश करके रेजा रेजा कर दी जाएगी और उसका रब जलवा फरोज होगा और फरिश्ते कतार अंदर कतार खड़े होंगे, जहन्नम को उसके सामने रखा जाएगा, तो फिर कहेगा काश कोई नसीहत मैंने हासिल की होती, मगर आज नसीहत किस काम की। फिर पुकारेगा काश मैंने अपनी जिंदगी में अपने हाथों से कुछ आगे भेज दिया होता, यानी अमाल साले और सदकाते जारिया जो गरबा और मस्कीन के काम आते, तो आज वो नीति यहाँ मेरे काम आ जाती। वमा अलैना इल्ला अल बलाग।
Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Pakistan, Sadia Qazi Sahiba, Honorable Member of the Parliament, distinguished guests and dear audience, Assalamu alaikum. Injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere. These are the words of Martin Luther King Jr., which in my opinion describes precisely the significance of the marking the Kashmir Solidarity Day at a time when we as the European citizens are witnessing the injustice in our neighborhood. Our unconditional support to the Ukrainian people in defending their country against the aggression derives from our unshakable stand for last 75 years in supporting the people of Jammu and Kashmir, combating the injustice posed on them by the state of India. It pleases me to see so many of you here today expressing solidarity with the supposed suppressed people of Kashmir in their just struggle for the right of self-determination in accordance with the United Nations resolutions and promises made by State of India and Pakistan. Dear audience, the plight of the people of Kashmir started at the time of the decolonization of the subcontinent. Transfer of power to India was rooted in the India Independence Act of 1947, passed by the House of Commons in United Kingdom, stating that the areas with Muslim majority, where All India Muslim League had won the election, will become the independent dominion of Pakistan, while the areas with Hindu majority, where Indian Congress had won the election, will become the independent dominion of Pakistan. At the same time, there were 567 princely states which were given the option of either joining Pakistan or Bharat or stay independent with the consent of the people of each state. This matter was resolved smoothly for overwhelming majority of the states except for 3 of the states. There were the states of Junagadh, Hyderabad, Dakkan, and the state of Jammu and Kashmir. 2 of them had the majority of Hindu population, and the head of the states were Muslims, while the biggest one of them, Kashmir, had overwhelming Muslim population, while the head of the state belonged to the Hindu religion. Nawab of Junagadh decided to accede to Pakistan, but the decision was thwarted by the India, arguing that head of the state had decided against the will of people. Indian forces invaded the state, and later a referendum was held to join Bharat. Nizam of Deccan wanted to stay independent and was promised by the United Kingdom's government and personally by the Prime Minister Churchill as well. But on September 13th, 1948, Indian forces attacked state and invaded under the code name Operation Polo and occupied the state. India formally incorporated the state into Union of India in 1950. In Kashmir, the situation was different. A 100-year rule of Hindu Maharaja had deprived people of Kashmir from the basic human rights and had subjected the non-Hindu population for severe discrimination in every sphere of life. A movement for basic human rights had started against the Dogra rule in Kashmir. Maharaja's inhuman and brutal crackdown on the movement for the rights turned state soon into civil war. The freedom fighter had the support of people and gained popularity, and Dogra forces were losing the ground. Maharaja fled from capital Srinagar to Jammu and invited the extremists from RSS from India to handle the revolt. Some of the worst massacres of the history took place in Jammu district, where hundreds of thousands of innocent Muslims were killed. Maharaja Hari Singh, confronted with defeat at the hands of the Kashmiri freedom fighters, asked India for help. India was most probably waiting for the moment and demanded accession to India as a condition for help. Maharaja made a conditional accession to India, and Indian military invaded the state under the pretext of requests made by Maharaja Hari Singh. The fight going on between the Dogra military and the Kashmiri freedom fighters turned over to be the fight between Indian military and the freedom fighters. Pakistan and Qaeda-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah initiated peace talks and invited India to resolve the issue peacefully. But it seemed that the government of India, and especially Prime Minister Nehru, was not interested in any serious dialogue and used the tactics of gaining the time to occupy the entire Kashmir with military force. But it seemed more difficult than constructed. After a year of fighting, India started losing the ground and feared the defeat at the hands of the Kashmiri freedom fighters. Then India decided to bring the matter to United Nations. United Nations passed a resolution in January 1949, which categorically stated that the people of Kashmir shall decide their future through an impartial plebiscite, either they want to join Pakistan or India. The resolution by the United Nations Security Council was accepted by both India and Pakistan, and both countries publicly made promises of abiding by it. But soon after this, India started avoiding the implementation of this resolution and have been doing so it constantly for 75 years. The people of Indian occupied Kashmir have been experiencing the worst kind of violation of their human rights by the state of India. The entire population of 8 million people have been kept under the siege by 800,000 Indian military forces against their will. There has hardly been a day of normal rule in Indian occupied Kashmir since 1947. As a last desperation action, India abrogated the clause 370 in Indian Constitution, which guaranteed the state of Jammu and Kashmir special status until the final status is cleared through a referendum. Indian occupied forces in Kashmir has imposed curfew for last 4 years. No international media of human rights organizations are allowed. Internet is shut down. People are put in jail without trial. They are refused medical facilities. Total censorship on the press. Forces are using pellet guns against the young people. India is not willing to fulfill its obligation in accordance with the United Nations resolution and does not take any lesson from the history. It is not only the people of Kashmir who are suffering from the attitude of India, but the entire population of Southeast Asia region is paying a high price. India must understand that it cannot and will not be able to curb the will of people of Kashmir. They have shown more resilient than the brutality by Indian forces. Let me remind India with words of a wise man, you can kill the dreamer, but you will never be able to kill the dream. Thank you very much. Dear audience, our next speaker of today does not actually require any introduction, since almost all of us know him very well and maybe some very personally. Mr. Shal Magne Bonevik has been in the service of people for almost 5 decades. He is one of the longest serving minister and ex-prime minister of Norway. He has, after his retirement from active politics, served for the cause of human rights through Oslo Center, which he chairs. I humbly request to Mr. Shel Magne Bonevik to take the floor and share with us your views on the ongoing suffering of the people of Kashmir. Mr. Shel Magne Bonevik.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and Your Excellency, Madam Ambassador. First of all, I want to welcome you to Norway. Pleasure to see you taking this important position because of the important relations between our two countries. I've been to Pakistan several times and I look forward to go back. And I look forward also to a cooperation with you here in Oslo. I also want to thank you for organizing this event today. Because in times when all focus is on Ukraine, of obvious reasons, it is important that some also pay attention to other tragic conflicts. And Kashmir is one of them. We know that the conflict has lasted for about 75 years since the establishment of the independent states of India and Pakistan. And as we know, the territory of Kashmir is divided between India and Pakistan by a so-called line of control that limits the movement of people and business across the border. Families are splitted. The human suffering is huge, and human rights abuses are well documented, also by the United Nations. I was visiting Kashmir together with my friend Amir Sheikh on both sides some years ago. And I saw with my own eyes the suffering of the people, all the hindrances for cooperation in that region. This was the first time for many years an international leader got access to the Indian-controlled side of Kashmir. So it was consequently breaking news in media in that part of the world that I was able to visit and also meet all the main leaders of the opposition in Indian-controlled Kashmir. We know that there have been several violent periods throughout these years, where also China has been involved at times. The issue has been discussed in the UN a number of times, and resolutions have been adopted demanding a referendum on the future of the status of Kashmir. But India has not accepted such a referendum, as we know. As we heard also in the introduction, initiatives have been put in place for ceasefire and for peace. However, never resulting in a final peace agreement. It seems to be more and more evident that there is no military solution on this conflict. We know also that in 2003, former President Musharraf, who passed away some days ago now, initiated a political solution through a so-called four steps approach without insisting on a referendum. India and Pakistan should meet for a dialogue. The parties should recognize Kashmir as a central conflict issue. They should identify and eliminate what was unacceptable for both parties and strive for a solution acceptable to both countries. And most importantly, acceptable for the people of Kashmir. A ceasefire was implemented and meetings on high level took place. But as we know, after a terrorist attack took place, the talks were terminated. A new initiative was taken in 2012 between President Zardari of Pakistan and Prime Minister Singh of India, but this unfortunately also failed. I have discussed this situation with former President Zardari and other current and former leaders in Pakistan. I have also approached India and visited India in this framework. But as you know, it is very difficult to reach the top level of Indian policy to discuss the Kashmir issue. I had a talk with a member of parliament, an influential member of parliament, and influential religious leaders, but was not able to reach the government. We know that some time ago also India changed the status of Kashmir and reduced its autonomy. We have experienced more violence, suffering, and many civilians have been killed. The conflict is dangerous when we know that both countries have nuclear weapons. So consequently, it is high time and it is urgent to ensure initiate new political efforts which can pave the way for ceasefire and for peace. I mean, and I urge the United Nations to take bigger responsibility. I appeal to the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, whom I personally know, because we were colleagues as prime ministers, to take such an initiative. People in Kashmir deserve it because they are suffering. It is a great potential for development and progress in Kashmir if they could have peace. For instance, especially in tourism, in this beautiful landscape, which I have seen with my own eyes. So let us utilize all opportunities to work for reconciliation and peace and get this conflict higher up on the political international agenda. I apologize for coming a little bit late here to this event. It's not always that modern technology is a good guide because my GPS led me another way and much trouble. But now I'm glad I'm here to have this event, and together we shall do what we can in all different frameworks where we are working. And I see politicians from different parties here to bring this issue up on the agenda and never give up our efforts for reconciliation and peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonevik, distinguished participants. We are pleased to have an honor to have with us our Member of Parliament, the Chairman of Oslo Labour Party, Mr. Frode Jacobsen. The founders of Labour Party made international solidarity as its core value to support the suppressed people worldwide. We are grateful, Frode, for your presence here last year, and we are humbly pleased to have you here today. Dear audience, join me in welcoming Frode Jacobsen.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation, Your Excellency, Madam Ambassador. Let me also start to give you a warm welcome to Oslo, my city, to Norway, my home country. And I hope that you will feel well during your stay here in Oslo. And I hope that you also will feel that the city of Oslo and Norway appreciate and are grateful for the Pakistani community's work here in Oslo. Last year we had the 50 years anniversary for the first Pakistani come to Norway and Oslo. So without the Pakistani community participation here in Oslo, we will not be in the city we are today. So thank you very much. And I will have the rest of my speech in Norwegian. So I hope that you will also understand more of my Norwegian during your stay in Oslo, in Norway. But I have never been to Kashmir, but I understand that it looks like Norway. It's a beautiful landscape, and so I hope that someday I also will go to Kashmir and see it with my own eyes. But dear friends, thanks for the invitation. Jeg har jo aldri vært i Kashmir, men jeg skjønner at den er vakker, som jeg nettopp sa. Men også den er kjent for sin beliggenhet og sin geopolitiske plassering og geografiske plassering mellom to atommakter, Pakistan og India. Og konflikten som Mr. Khalid Mahmoud holdt en orientering om, har jo vart lenge, 75 år, og har krevd mange uskyldige liv, og majoriteten av dem er muslimer. For meg handler ikke dette først og fremst en konflikt mellom Pakistan og India. Det handler om å respektere menneskerettigheter og retten til selvbestemmelse, til selv å velge sin vei til frihet. I Norge så tar vi vårt demokrati, retten til å ytre oss og retten til å leve frie liv som en selvfølge. Det burde også være en selvfølge i Kashmir. Og internasjonal solidaritet og kampen mot brudd på menneskerettigheter har alltid vært og vil alltid være en viktig del av Arbeiderpartiets ideologi og politikk. Derfor står vi sammen med det ukrainske folk som nå kjemper sin kamp mot en aggressiv nabo som har gått i militært angrep. Russlands ulovlige angrep i Ukraina må ikke skygge for konflikter andre steder i verden. Derfor står vi også og støtter palestinernes kamp for frihet og selvstendig Palestina. Og derfor støtter vi også kampen for frihet i Kashmir. Fred og stabilitet må på plass også i Kashmir. Derfor fordømmer vi terroristanslagene, selvmordsbomberne vi så i forrige uke, med over 100 drept. Dialog er løsningen. Terror og bruk av atomvåpen kan aldri være løsningen for å finne fram til fred i Kashmir. I alle konflikter er det 2 eller flere parter som er involvert, og alle involverte har et selvstendig ansvar for å arbeide for fred og forsoning. Og for meg så er det helt uforståelig at verdens største demokrati i 2019, for 3,5 år siden, ganske nøyaktig, fjernet grunnlovsparagrafen 370 fra sin grunnlov. For med et pennestrøk var kasjmirerne fratatt egen frihet og selvstyre. Denne paragrafen har vært og er fortsatt et viktig premiss for en varig og fredelig løsning på Kashmir-konflikten. Paragrafen har vært kasjmirernes håp om en bedre og lysere fremtid. Og det vi ser nå er brudd på menneskerettighetene. Det kan vi ikke gjøre noe annet enn å fordømme på det sterkeste. Og det er ekstra sørgelig at regjeringen i India har fulgt opp dette med portforbud i hele Kashmirdalen uten forbindelse til resten av verden. Kjære venner, situasjonen er absurd og uakseptabel. Og jeg er glad for å representere et parti hvor internasjonal solidaritet og menneskerettigheter spiller en rolle, helt avgjørende rolle i vår politikk og vårt verdigrunnlag. Menneskerettigheter og retten til selvstyre og bestemmelse skal trumfe overalt. Norge er et lite land, og alene har vi liten påvirkningskraft. Men som også Kjell Magne Bondevik var inne på, her kan Norge sammen med resten av verden jobbe for å få til løsninger, for at FN skal følge opp, og for at alle initiativer tas gjennom uformelle og formelle kanaler for å få partene til forhandlingsbordet. Gjennom forhandlingsbordet er eneste vei til frihet. Og det er dessverre vanskelig så lenge Indias regjering ikke ønsker involvering fra det internasjonale samfunnet. Men det skal dog likevel ikke, gode venner, bety at vi skal fravike vår plikt til å si tydelig fra og bruke enhver anledning til å arbeide for å skape fred i regionen og i Kashmirdalen. Arbeiderpartiets standpunkt i saken er tydelig og klart. Grunnlovsparagraf 370 må gjeninnføres. Indias regjering må leve opp til demokratiske verdier og respektere menneskerettighetene. Kashmirernes og deres rett til selvstyre og selvbestemmelse må følges. Igjen, takk for invitasjonen. Thank you for the invitation. Your fight for freedom is our fight too, so we will stand with you the whole time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frode. Since you had your speech in Norwegian, I would like to just say a few words what you said in English, so Her Excellency understands as much. Mr. Frode said that the conflict of Kashmir is not a conflict between India and Pakistan. It is a conflict of human rights. It is the people's right of self-determination, which is the core cause of this conflict. And he said that everybody, all the world, do have the right to decide their own future, and they should be given the right of self-determination. He says that the world's biggest democracy has abrogated 370. He doesn't understand how it is possible, and is violating the human rights all over in the Kashmir. He said that it's sad that we are a small country, but we must say what we feel. It's very important that our voice is raised. And we also understand that India refuses a third-party mediation, but we can't understand it. But we hope that India must respect these human rights and India must re-enter the paragraph 370 into its constitution. That is very important. India must respect the human rights and we cannot accept and tolerate the violation of human rights and we condemn it. Thank you very much. And dear audience, Mr. Frude, he was busy. He has taken the time to be with us and we promise him that he will be given the permission to leave this meeting during the program. So let us once more give a big hand of applause to the who did it. And thank you very much. Now, before we moving to our next speaker, we will now watch a documentary on the current situation in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir and inhuman conduct of Indian security forces and suppression of Kashmiri people.
Pakistan observes Kashmir Solidarity Day every year to reaffirm the pledge to continue political, moral and diplomatic support of their Kashmiri brethren for their right to self-determination, promised by UN resolutions. The day is observed to reiterate unity with the people of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, their ongoing freedom struggle, and to pay homage to innocent Kashmiris who lost their lives at the hands of Indian forces. On this day, people also seek the international community's attention towards the burning issue of Kashmir. International Human Rights Organization, Minority Rights Group International in its report on Kashmir has painted miserable picture of Kashmir. Human Rights Watch, time and again has reported on the worsening situation of human rights in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Amnesty International in its annual report slammed India for putting human rights defenders at heightened risk of surveillance by the Modi government agencies in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The International Committee of the Red Cross had been forced to stop its humanitarian works in the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir ever since 5th August, when the Indian government stripped the region of its political autonomy. International Committee of the Red Cross in its report disclosed Kashmiris inmates faces torture and sexual assault. Over 1 million brute Indian forces have turned Kashmir into a living hell. They have killed 96,163 Kashmiris in cold blood since January 1989. Indian troops have raped over 11,256 Kashmiri women during past 3 decades. The discovery of thousands of unmarked graves is another painful story of Indian crimes in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. These are graves of those innocent Kashmiris killed in fake encounters by Indian forces.
This is not a conflict frozen in time. It is a conflict that has robbed millions of their basic human rights and continues to this day to inflict untold suffering. I will be urging the Human Rights Council, the UN Human Rights Council, to consider establishing a commission of inquiry to conduct a comprehensive, independent, international investigation into allegations of human rights violations in Kashmir.
The Kashmir issue has always been the cornerstone of Pakistan's foreign policy since its creation. Pakistan has been persistently advocating for the settlement of Kashmir dispute in accordance with the wishes of Kashmiri people and UN resolutions at international conferences, bilateral discussions with India, and international forums.
We look for peace with all our neighbors, including India. Sustainable peace and stability in South Asia, however, remains contingent upon a just and lasting solution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. At the heart of this long-standing dispute lies the denial of the inalienable right of the Kashmiri people to self-determination.
In an effort to legitimize its occupation, India has repealed Articles 370 and 35A, which granted Kashmir statehood, and is planning to hold G20 meeting in Indian-held Kashmir, which is a UN-recognized disputed land under Indian occupation despite protests from Pakistan and China.
What India has done in August 2019, unilaterally usurping the United Nations recognized internationally disputed territory of Jammu and Kashmir is absolutely condemnable.
5th February is a reminder to the world powers that they should use their influence on New Delhi to settle the conflict over Kashmir and implement UN resolutions on this issue.
The UN General Assembly has adopted an annual resolution on universal realization of the right of self-determination that draws international attention to the plight and the right of self-determination of peoples subjected to colonial, foreign, and alien domination. Regrettably, the oppressed people of IIOJK have not been able to exercise their rights.
Now it is responsibility of the world community to realize the sensitivity of the issue. It must take cognizance of the fact that due to India's unrealistic and intransigent attitude, the peace and stability of the entire South Asia is at stake.
Thank you. Dear audience, let me introduce Mr. Guy Lipista. Guy Lipista is the chairperson of newly established political party, Centrum. But as you are aware of, Guy Lipista's valuable footprints in the Norwegian public life were visible much earlier than the establishment of the Centrum party. Guy, before I hand over the floor to you, I want to thank you for your support of the people of Kashmir and your participation in previous Kashmir Solidarity seminars. Floor is yours.
Your Excellency, Madam Ambassador, welcome to Norway. Hope you stay here will be great, and I hope you soon will go out skiing if you haven't tried yet.
There is no other way to walk here.
No, you have to go up in the mountains. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Party Centrum, as you know, is a very young party. We entered the country's political platform in 2020. And we are active in all parts of Norway. Unfortunately, the Kashmir conflict does not receive the attention it should have in Norwegian politics. Many Norwegians do not know and have the necessary knowledge to form an informed opinion. Fortunately, we in the Party Centrum have many members with a Pakistani background, and they have contributed to shedding light on this issue and the suffering of the Kashmirian people. So they have learned us in the Party Centrum how to react and how to form a politic around this very important topic. This has meant that we have been able to express ourselves as a party and encourage our country to take stand on this matter. As you all know, Norwegians are proud of our history of facilitating negotiation for peace and for taking part in peacekeeping mission led by the UN. We send peace observators to conflict areas in many parts of the world. Party Centrum wants Norway to raise the Kashmir issue at the UN in order to send observators there as well to Kashmir. Norway should, as a part of the UN Security Council, take initiative for a peacekeeping mission in this area. We live in a time of increasing geopolitical conflict. And the Kashmir conflict is one of the world's most heated, long-lasted conflict. I think, and we think in Partiet Centrum, that the world is on the sideline, watching and observing. But surely more can and must be done. This conflict and India's unlawfully occupation has been going on for far too many years now. And we must involve ourselves and do our best to contribute to a peaceful solution. All through Norway's country's history of working for peace, we are also a country with a fairly significant military industry. In our 2021 resolution on the Kashmir issue, the Partiet Centrum calls on the Norwegian government to stop all Norwegian companies selling arms and ammunition to those participating in the occupation of Kashmir. And that's very, very important. Norway should not sell weapons. Norway should not sell weapons in any way or any form to any who is a part of this occupation. I'm sure that a majority of Norwegians will agree with us on these questions, and I'm sure if they only knew more about what's happening in Kashmir, they will not just sit by and watch. The Kashmir conflict, with its complex picture, should, in my opinion, be a focus issue for our governments. Because Norway should consider its proud history as a host nation in major international peace negotiations, the Kashmir conflict should be at the top of our government's mind. I don't think it is today. As we are talking on the issue of peace, Norwegians have also seen the horrible flood last year in Pakistan, and also, of course, the political difficult situation today. We hope that Pakistan still continue as a champion of human rights and for freedom of speech and freedom of press, as there are the fundamental principles in Pakistani culture and heritage. So I hope that it still will be a great country as it's been for so many years. I can assure you that Partiet Centrum will continue to advocate for Kashmir conflict to be addressed according to human rights principles, and will continue to raise the Kashmir issue in various forums, in addition to Kashmir being adopted in a party of our program. Partiet Centrum has a resolution that states the following: that Norway should work for a peaceful solution to the conflict by that the Kashmiri population should be allowed to choose their future to a referendum in accordance with UN Resolution 47. 2, that Norway must show commitment to peace in Kashmir through cooperation in the UN and the UN Security Council in state-to-state dialogue. And 3, stop the sale of Norwegian weapons and weapons technology to all countries in this conflict. And 4, help UN to place peacekeeping forces in the Kashmir areas. We all hope and pray for the best for the Kashmirian people in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guy Lipista. Dear friends, we all know that since the first arrival of Pakistani diaspora in early 1970s, the Pakistani community have been incorporating the various roles to make its presence visible in every sphere of Norwegian public life. Politics is one of the fields where Pakistani voice has been loudest, and we have been always blessed with our presence at various levels. One of the members of Pakistani diaspora who have served at the parliament and has been a part of chairman panel is Mr. Akhtar Chaudhry. I'm pleased to give floor to Mr. Akhtar Chaudhry to express his views here today.
Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellency, let me first of all wish you welcome to Norway. It's a beautiful country, it's a beautiful city, and it's a beautiful people you have come to, both those who have Pakistani background and the general public. And we wish to work along and with you in order to make bonds between our two countries even better. It's absurd. I was looking through notes, my previous notes for this occasion. Last year's note and the note for the year before and the year before and the year before. All the same. All the same. The only thing I noted was that the situation has been deteriorated. It has become more peculiar. More people have lost their lives. More women have been raped. Nothing has changed. It's 74 years ago it all started. The girl who was born on 5th February 1948 is 74 years today. 74 years. There is not much time left for her on this globe. And if she dies today, she will die as a slave. She has never taken a single breath as a free person. That is the tragedy. And this century, 74, 75 years as a person never been able to feel something we all believe belong to human beings. The basic human right to be free. And this is the atrocity. And while this has been taking place, we see how we, particularly from the West, have been hypocrites. I'll use two examples. We have a warm issue of Taiwan today. We all believe that Taiwan is a part of China. Even the Congress, United States Congress, they have the policy on that Taiwan is a part of China. Yet, we have repeatedly warned China to take any step to change status quo. We have repeatedly warned them. There is another country in the same region, Iran, violating human rights of its own citizens. And we have imposed sanctions there for last 40 years. And every day which passes, we impose more sanctions simply because human rights are being violated there. So what is the difference between China, Iran, and Kashmir? There must be some difference. Why aren't we able to take Kashmiri people's basic human rights to a level where we solve this? And ladies and gentlemen, I believe basically, although I know that this issue also have a religious dimension, I believe basically that these are the human beings. And let's for a single moment believe that they are part of Indian society, Indian country, just for a second. Even then, they have the right to enjoy their basic human, social, and political rights. Why is it happening? We have to look into that and we have to change the situation. Because our double standards, they're simply nourishing frustration. And one day, if some frustrated youngsters take a path which we don't like, it will be very easy for us to label them as terrorists. It was good to listen to Mr. Bondevik's speech. I second every single word. And the proposals he had, that is the way how we can solve this issue. Every single proposal. I don't want to, and I don't need to repeat them. I simply second them, every single of them. And although this is a difficulty for us all, at the end, I would like to end this with a few words to those who are sitting and making the policies in Pakistan in order to solve this issue. And I would say it in Urdu, just a few words. आप लोग जो उस मुल्क की क़यादत में हैं, जिनको अल्लाह ने क़यादत दी है और आपने वो जिम्मेदारी ली है, 75 साल से आपने इन कश्मीरियों को आज़ादी देने की का नारा लगाया है। 75 साल से वो लोग आपकी आवाज़ सुन रहे हैं। लेकिन ये बुनियादी बात है कि जब आपको कोई झगड़ा जीतना होता है तो उसके लिए कुछ बुनियादी जिम्मेदारियां होती हैं, कुछ बुनियादी अनासर होते हैं। आपको उस मुल्क में कौमी यकजहती पैदा करना होगा, आपको सियासी जो है वो उस मुल्क में स्टेबिलिटी लाना होगी, उसमें मुआशी स्टेबिलिटी लाना होगी। इन तीनों चीजों के बगैर आप उस मुल्क के साथ, हिंदुस्तान के साथ झगड़ा नहीं कर सकते, और कर तो सकते हैं लेकिन जीत नहीं सकते। तो ये एक छोटा सा मैसेज है उन लोगों के लिए जो उस मुल्क की क़यादत पे, जिन पे अल्लाह ने उनको फायज किया है। And with that, I would thank all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akhtar Chaudhry sir. You are very right when you say that when we look at the notes of these days, last year, the year before, that is very correct. But let me say that it is not the lady who was born in 1948, who is 74, maybe he has expired, but the third generation of the Kashmiris are now carrying the flag of freedom. And this is very, very something exceptional in the history of the mankind, that for 75 years have been gone and they have been kept under siege, but not a millimeter have they deviated or stepped back from their stance of self-determination. That is also very exceptional. And I think that we need to salute the people in Indian occupied Kashmir for their courage and for their commitment and for their conviction of demanding their self-determination. And I would like to also say that, let me state the words of Sir Zafarullah Khan, the first Pakistan Foreign Minister, who sent a telegram to Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan. And he said that the CN of Kashmir is not going to be taken in New York, it is going to be taken in Kashmir. And the people of Indian occupied Kashmir is showing that that is going to happen. There it is. And as I said in my opening lecture, there's not been a single day of normal rule in Indian occupied Kashmir since 1947. So thank you very much, Akhtar Chaudhry. Now I will ask Mr. Mahmood Ahmed, who is a politician from the Beacon County representing the Socialist Party, to come forward and express his views. Mr. Mahmood Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Her Excellency Ambassador Sadia Kadisaba, distinguished guests, and dear fellows. My nature is that I'm kind of optimistic, so I felt that Kashmir Solidarity Day is also about being optimistic, even though we don't see that right now. But you know, there's a expression that Rome wasn't built on one day. And that's why I want to highlight this as well. Human history has showed us that we shouldn't stop and just move on. Today, I also want to congratulate the semi-national minority in Norway. They are also celebrating today. We shouldn't forget that they were on the same position for 100 years back, where they also were a minority. But today, they are a voice in the Norwegian and the Nordic community as well. So it's about faith, about having belief. As you know that today's important commemoration is about showing international solidarity, humanity, and love for Kashmir and the Kashmiri people. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party had long opposed Article 370 and revoking it was in the party's 2019 election manifesto. They argued it needed to be scrapped to integrate Kashmir and put on the same footing as the rest of India. And after returning to power with a massive mandate in the April-May general elections, the government lost no time in acting on its pledge. So now it has gone 1,280 days since India imposed Kashmir blackout, depriving basic human rights. And it's my personal belief that a lot of politicians, at least those who have some kind of brain, see Narendra Modi as a Trump-related person, actually. So it is now more than important ever that international community, superpowers, when I'm saying superpowers, you all know who I'm actually relating to, the peace mediation countries sit together on the same table and discuss a joint peace solution. We should have done that when Norway had the seat in UN Security Council for 2 years. We didn't do that. Why didn't we do that? We had the power. And this was one of the questions I raised to Mr. Torbjørn Jagland when I met him in the Socialism Conference on the autumn this year, where I was also. So, but the voices are actually raised. I will give you 3 examples. Lately, members of the British Parliament strongly condemned the ongoing massacres and sexual violence against women in occupied Kashmir. Likewise, in the Swedish Parliament, there has been presented a statement of the condemnation against human rights violation of occupied Kashmir and oppression of Kashmiri people. Also, Human Rights Watch states that European Parliament has had a meeting on January 12th, 2021, where they had a dialogue and where they actually expressed this serious matter towards European Union as well. So it's not that the races are not raised, but voices, the people who wants to hear these voices also have, like Mr. Akhtar Chaudhry said, double standards as well, and it's of their benefits to not discuss this. And this where we in Socialist Left Party work for Norway to become a nation of peace, not just in words, but in action. Norwegian efforts in international armed conflicts shall be civilian efforts and humanitarian assistance and possible participation in peacekeeping operations under United Nations directions and auspices. Today, and let me repeat this, and member of parliaments know it very well, and also people, today Norwegian foreign policy is largely shaped by what NATO and the US want us to do. That's actually the case. We can no longer participate in wars to nurture our alliances when the consequences for the countries we indirectly operate in are catastrophic. In the Norwegian parliament, my political party, Socialist Left Party SV, has proposed withdrawing Norwegian forces from Jordan, Syria, Iraq, where we have forces as part of US or NATO-led operations today. So, as an international champion of global human rights, fundamental freedom, and governance, my country, Norway, must raise its voice against human rights abuses in occupied Kashmir. Norway has to create a conducive environment for the peace negotiation. Norway must make independent assessments of the ongoing security challenge rather than lean to the US threat assessments. In the end, I would like to emphasize once again that my party, SV, stands 100% side by side with the Kashmiri people and will continuously work on all deemed necessary efforts. And I say this because I have raised this issue to the management level. Unfortunately, but fortunately for somebody, my party leader, Audun Lysbakken, has said through media that he will give the floor to another lady taking over this leadership, and she's Kirsti Bergstø, who I have very good relation with politically. So I hope that she's elected, and then I will also work with Ingrid Fiskaa. Ingrid Fiskaa, for you who don't are familiar, is Norwegian MP and sitting in the Foreign Committee in the Parliament. So we work together actually when we discuss these efforts. Finally, I would like to express my condolences to what happened in Turkey and Syria today, because they're also our fellows. And then I would like to express my thank you to Her Excellency Ambassador for the invitation to today's important Kashmir Solidarity Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmoud Ahmed. Dear audience, as you are aware of, we are always having the Red Party represented here on our Solidarity Day for the Kashmir. And today we're having Mr. Sivash Mubashri, who is representing the Red Party, here to express solidarity with the people of Kashmir. Mr. Sivash Mubashri is young, energetic leader of the Red Party, and he is currently serving as the chairperson of the Red Party in Oslo City Parliament. Mr. Mubashri is a vocal hymn in the Norwegian society for raising the voice for the human rights. We are pleased to have you here on the behalf of your party, which has been always with us, and the member of your party from the parliament has always been here with us, but we welcome you as much, and I give floor to you, Mr. Sivash Mubashri.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency Sadia Altaf Kazi, I wish you welcome to a very cold country, but I think with the Norwegian people and Oslo will take you in a good way. Thank you for this invitation to speak on this occasion of Kashmir Solidarity Day. Many people in Norway, and especially in Oslo, felt restrictions of freedom when the country partially shut down in response to the corona pandemic. In Kashmir, a dramatic state of emergency, a curfew, have affected the lives of millions of people for much longer. India and Pakistan have been in conflict with each other since independence from British colonial rule in 1947. Kashmir is one of the most militarized areas in the world today. In the militarized zone, the lives and the liberties of the population are controlled through inhuman laws, which involves arbitrary use of detention, arrests, searches, seizures of property, and the use of lethal force. The Kashmir conflict is often presented as a struggle between India and Pakistan for control over Kashmir. It is thus presented as there are two equal sides fighting over control for the region. This is completely wrong. Pakistan's demands have been that the people of Kashmir should be allowed to decide their own future. The Indian government is denying the people of Kashmir their wish. One can of course use or argue that the Pakistan demand is due to the fact that a majority of the population in Kashmir would rather join Pakistan. That is probably correct, but Pakistan's desire to help is primarily due to the brutal occupation and the growing anger directed to the Indian government. The Indian authorities have considered our opposition to the occupation to be extremist. However, the rest of us should emphasize the fact that there is a perceived difference between those who fight a battle against occupation and those who carry out terror against civilians. Most of the groups in Kashmir are local, and although they have received support from Pakistan, but most of them also have close ties and strong support with the local population. Unfortunately, there is no reason to believe that Prime Minister Modi will listen to the plight of Kashmiri people. We know that the situation in Kashmir are getting worse. At the same time, the world community has closed their eyes. The UN Security Council threats India with the seal clause, and there were no reactions to the fact that the Indian government removed a constitution clause granting Kashmir special autonomous rights. The Red Party, and also called Rødt, Party Rødt in Norwegian, supports people and nations fighting against occupation and oppression and recognizes the rights of nations to self-determination, but should it be in Palestine or Kashmir. We strongly condemn abuses against civilians, restrictions on democratic rights and repression, regardless of where in the world it happens or who is behind it. Therefore, we support the people of Kashmir in their struggle for independence, self-determination, and freedom of expression, and against all forms of oppression. The Red Party demands that Norway put pressure on India to end the military occupation and violence against Kashmir. The possibility of an armed conflict with both Pakistan and India is increasingly present. The international community must work for a peaceful solution. I would like to conclude by quoting the Norwegian poet Nordahl Grieg, who said this in the poem, in his poem, Til ungdommen, which is translated to the youth. War is condemned for life. Peace is creation. Through all your power in, to death through damnation. Civilization in Kashmir cannot and should not experience an intensified armed conflict between Pakistan and India. The Red Party has maintained that a lasting solution to Jammu and Kashmir dispute is possibly only in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions and wishes of the Kashmiri people. We will continue to extend our unconditional moral and political support for the Kashmiri people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sivash. Dear audience, before I request Her Excellency Madam Ambassador for concluding remarks, I will avail the opportunity to welcome her to Norway as the Ambassador of Pakistan on the behalf of entire Pakistani diaspora in Norway. I think that we are privileged to have you as ambassador with such competency and experience, taking into account your long services in Pakistan Foreign Services and having a look at your professional credentials. There's no doubt that you are going to be the one of the best one to do the job as the ambassador for our beloved Pakistan. Dear Excellency, I'm confident I do have entire Pakistani diaspora residing in Norway behind me when I assure you that we all, under your guidance, will perform our best for the Pakistan. With these words, dear audience, I will request to you to join me in standing ovation. Am I excused, Your Excellency? Ladies and gentlemen, we were supposed to have Mishal Malik with us, and she was not with us when I started introducing Her Excellency. So let us have Vishal Malak with us. Dear audience, it is true honor for me to introduce our next speaker of today. In my opinion, she is one of the most valiant and strongest women of the Kashmir freedom struggle. Dear friends of Kashmir, Mrs. Mishal is not only campaigning for the justice for her courageous and great leader Yasin Mullah. He is towering as the highest beacon of encouragement to the millions of fighters combating injustice. Madam Mishal, please allow me to read a short poem wrote to appraise Mr. Yasin Malak at the time when he was sentenced by the Indian court. I have written this poem and I will, with your permission, try to read it before I pass floor to you. यासीन मलक को सलाम करो और दुआ उसके नाम करो। कश्मीर की वो आन है, आज़ादी की पहचान है, जुर्रत का निशान है, तुम सब ये ऐलान करो। यासीन मलक को सलाम करो और दुआ उसके नाम करो। वो आज़ादी का मतवाला है, कश्मीर का रखवाला है, जुल्म से टकराने वाला है, फिदा उस पे अपनी जान करो। यासीन मलक को सलाम करो, हर दुआ उसके नाम करो। हक पे डट के वो लड़ा है, तख्तादार से नहीं डरा है, उठा के सर मक्तल में खड़ा है, उस पे फख्र सुबह शाम करो। यासीन मलक को सलाम करो, हर दुआ उसके नाम करो। शहीदों का लहू रंग लाएगा, हिंदुस्तान शिकस्त खाएगा, यासीन मलक न सर झुकाएगा, ये नारा सारे मिलकर आम करो। यासीन मलक को सलाम करो, हर दुआ उसके नाम करो। I am pleased to pass floor to you, Mrs. Mishal Malak. Welcome.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I am really deeply touched by such a heart-wrenching poem and such emotional verses. And Ameen, inshallah, a day will come when we will be released from the clutches of tyranny and the Kashmiri people will also have a right to live. Unfortunately, the only right that India has given the Kashmiri people or the people asking for freedom and to live with dignity is the right to die and not even the right to get buried. So I really don't know what will happen with us in the future, but I know the people of Norway, the Embassy of Norway, and I see the Honorable Mr. Bondeberg, the new ambassador of Pakistan to Norway, Mr. Amir Sahab, and so many other great friends are there, especially my previous trip that I had in Norway. It's so memorable with Mr. Bondeberg and Mr. Amir when I was invited to the Oslo Center during Ms. Riffat's tenure as an ambassador. And what remarkable people, I mean, such beautiful, such hopeful, and such positive vibes I got. And I think it was a great source of light and encouragement for a person like me. And I think I was very blessed to have met so many important people there through the Oslo Center, and the kind of support that I got from them, and they gave me that hope that, you know, inshallah, a day will come when Kashmiris will be heard and there will be peace. And there were a lot of efforts that took place by the Norwegian side for some kind of peaceful way forward. But unfortunately, during those years, in 2017, 18, 19, 20, I think Mr. Modi was way too overconfident about his fascist policies. And then he got lucky that he got, the whole world got focused into Corona after 2020 March, and global focus shifted away from what he did on 5th of August 2019, in which he snatched so many rights from the people of Kashmir. And we witnessed the longest prolonged curfew in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where women, children, adults, elderly, men were jailed, or they were locked up in their homes, or there were no food supplies for months and months. There were no schools and colleges, and underground torture cells were constructed, and a lot of unmarked missing persons and unmarked graves were found in Kashmir. And we saw, like in simple words, that just with the stroke of a pen, a presidential order was passed by the Modi regime in 2019, 5th of August, through lawfare, and the Kashmiri people lost their identity to, to claim their identity, and became refugees and disenfranchised in moments and seconds, and property rights and voter rights and our state subject rights were taken away from us and given away to the Indian public. And in the past 3 to 4 years, 3.5 years, we have seen that almost 50 lakh Indians, 50 lakh is not a small number, have gotten, right to live there, right to vote through various policies, the delimitation policy and the union territory that they're trying to make. And I'm afraid that within a year or so, we will witness that India might become a majority there. Their citizens will live as official public occupiers. I say official because they came as administrators and became protected persons, and that's how they entered Kashmir for the first time. And in the past 75 years, we've seen that from protectors, they became occupiers, and they had come to grant Kashmiri people and exercise the right to freedom and give them that right to plebiscite. But they violated the Geneva Conventions. And when it comes to Kashmiri people, I think in simple words, I just have one major, I would say, violation that India has committed for any simple person to understand. According to Universal Declaration of Human Rights, especially its Article 1, which has been terribly, terribly violated by India under international and national laws, is that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. But it's something which is almost impossible. And then we've seen that how United Nations Security Council Resolution 47 was violated. How, as I mentioned earlier, they came as administrators, became occupiers, and plebiscite was not conducted. And then it's a joke, literally, that guarantee to life and guarantee to freedom and liberty, according to Article 14, that calls for equality, and Article 21, Article 22. I can go on and on talking about the articles. I can go on and on talking about Universal Declaration, about international law, international humanitarian law, Geneva Conventions, UN resolutions, which are over a dozen on Kashmir, or the bilateral treaties. And it's been a long journey of bilateralism in the past. We go back to the times of Shimla Agreement, and we witnessed series of Indo-Pak dialogues. And I'm afraid that Kashmiri people were always part of any kind of peace dialogue or any kind of support that these peace dialogues needed to grow further. And we were never an obstacle for peace and for any settlement. But we witnessed numerous confidence building measures these past 5 decades, such as, I remember, like trade diplomacies, cross-cultural diplomacies, LOC trade, the line of control, and travel access between both the Kashmirs, travel by bus on Atari, cricket diplomacy we witnessed many times, and student exchange programs happening, and a lot of other ways of bringing travel and normalcy. But then each time, because now I'm really looking at from a very hawkish eye or a very eagle eye, you could say, in a very microscopic manner, that each time these dialogues happen, why is it that suddenly some false flag operation happened and everything, became dust, and the dialogues ended up into a blame game situation, and then everything was jeopardized, and then after the blame, further, allegations of anger, of threats, of interrogations, inquiries started at, from the Indian side, majorly. So over the years, I have witnessed that India has gained a lot from these dialogues, or these, between their foreign secretaries. They have gained a lot of time. And in gaining that time in the past 50 years, they have increased their draconian laws and their occupational strength over there in Kashmir. And they have, when, like UPA, TADA, POTA, Armed Forces Special Powers Acts, and many other draconian laws. And you will all be surprised that most of these draconian laws are from the post-colonial era of 1860, when the colonials, the British, were here during the East India Company times. And in Britain, these laws are way gone nullified by them, and there are no sedition laws over there. Yet, in the Constitution of India of 1950 and further on 1978, these laws are not applicable, the sedition laws. Yet, they are implemented, they are exercised, and Kashmiri people, majority of them, they are punished on these draconian laws. So this is a mockery of the justice system of India. And then there, as I mentioned, the bilateralism. And through this bilateralism, they gain time. And while gaining time, they try to weaken the political, peaceful strength of the people of Kashmir, the real voices. And now we've reached a point where we don't have Congress, we don't have any other rule. We have directly the rule or the aggression of the RSS, which is a terrorist organization involved in various terrorist activities, especially targeting minorities in the past, such as forced conversions of Christians, and attacking their churches, and attacking Dalits, the Muslims, and the Sikh community, and moderate Hindus. And we have also seen how armed, well-equipped and armed they are, and there are parallel army within India right now, the RSS. And the same RSS was involved in similar attacks and genocidal acts and massacres in 1947 in the Jammu region, where 5 lakh Muslims were beheaded, killed, butchered by the RSS in 1947. But at that time, they were not officially in power in India. They were a minority. But now they're ruling. Everywhere it's them. The state patronage has been given to them. And the policies that they're implementing in Kashmir, it's not alarming. It was expected, it was part of their political manifesto. So what is the way forward? I don't understand that, why have we not learned? And we were never an obstacle. Now the time has come where our entire leadership is locked up. The peaceful voices, the representatives of the people. And Mr. Bondevak was, in really tough times, he visited Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And I know it was very difficult for him to reach. And he met a few of the leadership there, but he was not allowed to meet Yasin Malik because Yasin was arrested. But at least he, through his international pressures, he managed to go there and took a huge risk of his life during the times when the popularity and the policies of Modi were at his peak. Because for almost 8 to 10 years, no high-powered delegation had visited Kashmir. Yet he managed to go there because he promised me when I was in Oslo that I will go to Kashmir. I will use my maximum strength and friends within India and outside India to convince the regime that, this is not the way forward. Come on the table. We need to work for peace because nobody can afford a war between India and Pakistan. And now you even have China in the middle. So it's stuck between 3 nuclear countries. And if it aggravates further, it can move on to Iran and Russia. I was at a function the other day and I was alarmed. There were a lot of diplomats there, and the kind of Akhand Bharat narrative that India has right now this can literally expand into a World War III. And for them, thinking from the spectrum of their RSS, because Modi is a diehard RSS follower, for them, they have no care whatsoever about the side effects or the impacts that this aggravation can have. But naturally, when they're always threatening, because now, according to them, they have conquered Kashmir completely through their public, through their army, and they have almost wiped out our leadership. And it's almost going to move towards a graveyard of Kashmiri people. Next step is Azad Kashmir. And then from then onwards to Gilgit-Baltistan. So they're not going to stop because they believe that they have to finish this agenda. No, it's part of their faith, of their ideology, of their thinking. They even murdered Gandhi. So for them, doesn't matter who comes in the way. But I think someone has to come in the way to stop them, especially the international community needs to hold them accountable. And I have come to a conclusion that unless and until India is, especially under the current regime, is not brought under universal jurisdiction because it has violated, Geneva Convention 4, and then also Chapter 5 and 6 of the United Nations, because it can, if, yes, I remember Mr. Bondewak was also in Pakistan the day India and Pakistan exchanged nuclear codes. I remember Mr. Amir was also here, and how close they were. It was such a dangerous time, and God saved humanity, not just the Kashmiri public or the Indian public or the Pakistani public. I also pity the public of India in what hands India has gotten into right now. I care about the public. I care about peace. I can't see the future of this world, so backward and going back to Stone Age and not thinking. So we need to take charge of the situation, take hold of the situation, and also to put India under international obligations and demilitarize and reverse this abrogation that they've done of Article 370, 35A by tabling a resolution. I would request the embassy also that to use your good office to all the think tanks, people, influential people sitting amongst the audience right now, that they should they should write letters to the United Nations, correspond with them, that an urgent resolution should be tabled from the United Nations to demand that no changes should be made of the demography in a disputed territory, because that will directly affect and violate the UN resolutions. And it will marginalize the voices of the people over there, the heirs of that land, and they will be their voice will be wiped out. So I think it's very important to have a Kashmir envoy also from the United Nations. It's high time. And we've seen international voices coming forward on the matter of Ukraine. That's really appreciated. But in the past also, we've seen that the UN has established ad hoc criminal tribunals in the case of Rwanda and Yugoslavia on similar war crimes and attacks against humanity. And at that time, it was Professor Stanton who was heading Genocide Watch. He was part of the UN, and he has mentioned that we're almost on the last stage of genocide in Kashmir. So I would appeal to the world that there are many ways of taking action against this aggression by India. Then my own husband, who is the face of non-violence in Kashmir and has always been part of, any kind of peaceful solution for the people of the subcontinent, not just for the Kashmiris. And he's right now, ladies and gentlemen, in a death cell of 5 by 7 feet. And it's been literally almost going to be 4 years on 22nd of February since we have not spoken to him. He was arrested on our 10th wedding anniversary in 2019, and now it's 2023. And he was already punished last year on 25th May in one of the worst, I would say, the blackest day of justice in the world, I would say, because a man is not allowed, even if the state has decided to punish him, he was not allowed to defend himself. He was not allowed a counsel. He was not allowed to represent himself and to speak on behalf of the cases and the allegations which were filed against him. And he was only presented physically in the courts when they had to punish him. And the day they were punishing him, that day when the judge was writing the decision, they asked Yasin that, do you want any kind of, lenience or any kind of favor? He just laughed. He said, I'm not going to beg for my life. I expect. The international community convinced me when I was in jail many decades ago that start the peaceful struggle of Kashmir and the world will listen to you. And a lot of European countries were involved, ambassadors of the world, intellectuals. This was back in early 90s because he was the pioneer of the armed struggle, ladies and gentlemen. And then when the international community convinced him in jail that, you become the Gandhian of the movement, the non-violent movement. And when he followed that, he lost hundreds of his friends. They were killed by the Indian Army bullet. So there was a strong betrayal from the Indian state after he renounced the armed struggle. Till date, he's a champion of non-violence against the highest occupation of the world, combating it patiently, and he became that icon that the students, the youth, the public looks up to. And that is one of the major reasons why it is 99.9999% our movement is peaceful. So we are doing so much for peace and for a peaceful solution. And how are we treated? Worse than even any animals have right, insects have rights of prisoners. But it's just terrible how he's being kept there, beaten physically and mentally also, and he's become so fragile. And now other fictitious charges he's been filed against him in fraudulent cases in Jammu. And over there also, 3 times the judge has said that we want Yasin Malik to be presented physically in the courts. Yet the Indian government has denied 3 times. They have not presented him. They said we cannot remove him from the death cell of the jail. And that death cell is not an ordinary death cell. It's one of the most notorious jails in the world. And to counter that, he's gone on numerous hunger strikes. His only demand is that he be presented physically to speak up, to cross-examine against all those fictitious charges. I can go on and on about the entire Kashmiri leadership also right now. What happened with Saeed Ali Gilani Sahab, how his dead body was humiliated. He was not given the right for a decent funeral, and his grave is right now sub jail. And Mr. Bondevik has met him also in Srinagar when he was there. And we lost Ashraf Sarai Sahab. He was poisoned in jail. Asiya Andrabi Sahiba, she's also in Tihar jail, and she's really ill right now. But they're also in barracks. Some of them are still allowed to speak to their families. But this is the only case right now, which is a test case for the Indian secular or their democracy or their whatever treatment that they have for Kashmiri prisoners, is that we are not allowed to speak to him, nor even send him a letter, nor any telegram, nor any email, nor any video conference in 21st century. Me and my daughter were not allowed. And I haven't seen him for almost 9 years. It'll be 14 years to our marriage on 22nd of February, 2023. It'll be 14 years, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine I've only spent 60 days with the man I fell in love with and I got married to him. And what pain that I go through or Kashmiri people go through, especially of divided and separated families, because it's an abnormal life. It's already a life full of insecurity, of sadness, of challenges, what we people go through, the Kashmiri people, and then divided and have no idea, will we ever be able to meet each other? Will we ever have a chance to speak to each other? Will we ever be able to ever see each other on this planet? And the only place where India cannot, put a curfew on our family is, thank God there's no technology as such right now, is dreams. It is literally we meet in dreams. I see him there. Can you imagine living such a life? I mean, even Nelson Mandela's family used to meet him, his wife, children, during his prolonged incarcerations. Che Guevara, Yasser Arafat, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, when he was hanged, before that, his family used to regularly meet him. Maqbool Butt Shahid, when he was hanged, his family in Tihar jail were allowed to speak to him, meet him. Afzal Guru Shahid, I mean, there's so many people you can talk about. But yet they were given this right to at least communicate with their family. But over here, it's completely, I think it's easier to meet in heaven or hell than on this earth. That's the kind of life we lead. So this time I decided to, pour my feelings and my emotions and how much I miss his presence in our life through a little poem that I wrote on 5th of February this year. And I would like to share it with this beautiful gathering of such beautiful human beings with beautiful souls of Norway sitting in Oslo, and my dear, really close friends also over there. I would like to, begin and also conclude my talk with this little poem that I've written. But before that, I would like to thank the diplomat who was addressing the audience right now. That was such a beautiful poem that you've written on Yasin, and I'm deeply touched, and I hope a day will come when we can share your poem with Yasin. Inshallah, I hope a day will come when the global community will also come forward and help in his release and the release of all the Kashmiri prisoners who are locked up over there. So the poem is titled, ladies and gentlemen, An Ode to Yasin, a love tale. Awakening from the deep creases of sleep, your love's a raging river I weep. I crackle in love's flame. Every atom of my body ignited when you came. Evoking peaks and lush fields, careless caressings with endless blessing. With thee walking hand in hand, gazing enchantingly, a prison reforms into a tulip garden so magically. Even hell becomes heaven with thee. Lying on those banks of Nagin, draped beneath the chinar trees, blood-red lips and long walks on Bund's lover lanes, evoking sparks and kangris in Maisuma's winter rains. These blossoming lilies and roses of Kashmiri cheeks, the restless, bustling crowds of Srinagar's narrow streets, showering petals and dry fruits, a welcome few have known. I ask God why you shared a glimpse of paradise and brought me back to earth here, wretched in this parted world, exiled from my lover and hurled. As a restless dervish, I weep for thy unison with my romanticist, burning for thy glance of my spiritual alchemist. I'm a malang in disguise, hair uncombed, body shrunken, shivering hands, growing strands of gray, tattered clothes, shattered feelings, battered souls. Yet you can't see me, yet you can't see me. You all are blinded, for I have skilled the art of hide and seek. Now embrace me, my love, and hold me next to your heart. Take me in your arms, I swear, as my woes are too much to bear. What blazes and jails stand in our way? What serpents, what beasts of prey? No matter how many poisoned cups life serves us, in this whirlpool of heaven and abyss, love conquers all. For I dance in your love, dance, dance, Mishal. Your love has come, and I will dance in intoxication forever, as I am the Lal Deed, so drunken in your eyes, Yasin. Except drunkenness, I have no tale to tell, till my heart tears apart and bleeds every drop, drop by drop, and the soul overflows my beats. For when love arrives, for when love arrives, all cages break, all rituals haze, love, and only love is seen. Rest, all learnings fade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for beautiful words and the beautiful poem. And I will try to pass my poem to you. Ladies and gentlemen, without any delay further, I will now request Her Excellency to come forward. So please join me in warm welcome for Her Excellency Ambassador of Norway, Madam Sadia Kazi, in her first public speech in Oslo.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. I have a great privilege today to welcome you. This is my first public speech to the community also, but the occasion today takes precedence over that. And this is the solidarity speech for our brethren of Kashmir. That part of Kashmir which is illegally occupied by India. Not only brethren, our sisters, our children of Kashmir. They are incarcerated there in the open prison, which is one of the most heavily militarized part of the world. And they're looking forward to us. So today's gathering here is very much moralizing for them. 75 years have passed, you were right. We have been just echoing our words of solidarity, but we should not desist from that. If our Kashmiri brethren are not desisting, if they are resilient, then why should we be? If we will stop our voice, that will demoralize them, not Indian repression. But before I continue with my thoughts, which were actually just shattered when I empathized with Mushal. And Mushal didn't mention of her young child. When I met her in Pakistan, I was just speechless. Mushal has perhaps seen Yasin Malik for 60 days. That young child has not seen her father, but still she is living with the conviction that one day she will. And we hope and pray she will, and we voice our raise in solidarity that she will. All cages will break, Mushal, all cages will break. With that, I thank you all, starting with ex-Prime Minister of Norway, Honorable Kjell Magne Bondevik. Please excuse my bad pronunciation, but in the names, perhaps it is not written, it is the idea which makes you invaluable. The way you have put your voice behind Kashmiris with the stature of being ex-Prime Minister of Norway. Kashmiris need that stature. There are many international community members who have been raising their voice, but what adds value to the Kashmiris' voice is the stature, because UN Security Council has also passed resolutions, but the highest political stature that is lagging behind in giving that backing to the Kashmir cause. And today, I was so happy to see that cross-party structure of Norway, they have made Kashmir cause their manifesto. So starting, I heard Honorable Mr. Froth Jacobson. He highlighted all paradoxes of Indian argument, the fallacy of Indian argument. Before that, our moderator, Honorable Khalid Mahmood Saab, he highlighted how on one side, India argues Junagadh state's accession on one ground, but on diametrically opposite side, it argues Kashmir differently. How is it possible that double standards just expose India itself? Then our honorable speaker, Mr. Kjell Bondevik, he highlighted very succinctly and very appropriately that all lawfare options we may try, but the only option for Kashmir solution is implementation of UN resolutions. And that is the simple solution. Give Kashmiris the right to determine for themselves. Whatever they will determine, Pakistan, India will respect it. Then we had our honorable speaker, Mr. Gair Lipista. Thank you for making Kashmir so unequivocally your party manifesto. Thank you, Mr. Mahmood Ahmed. Thank you, Mr. Akhtar Chaudhary. Thank you, Red Party, Mr. Devash Mubashri. I heard you all, and I just echo and second, and I heard you all unambivalently, unequivocally speaking and giving support to Kashmiri voice. That's what Kashmiris need, and that's what a voice coming from Norway should be. Norway, which is the torchbearer of human rights. Norway, which is Center for Nobel Peace Prize. Norway, which has been a conflict resolutor for so many other conflicts in the world. It should not be lagging behind in voicing Kashmiri's voice. And Kashmiris, they just ask for their right to self-determination. Simple as that. I should not delve on that, what it is. Every speaker has already elaborated it to you, and the job of the last speaker is very difficult in a way that if it starts echoing the same thing, perhaps boredom is very visible, but its job is easier in that sense that all preceding speakers have already so aptly worded their expression of support for Kashmiris that made the task easy for me today with a conviction, not with any dismay that 75 years have passed. No, it is with a conviction that even though this much time has passed, even though a woman here with 74 years of age may not have seen the light of the day, even though every woman showing in this banner has a history behind each wrinkle of cry on her face, but one day the light of the day will dawn. That is the conviction with which we together gather here in solidarity. That is the conviction with which we raise our voices. And that is the conviction with which we should continue raising our voice till the day Kashmiris will attain their right to self-determination, because our unflinching conviction is that this right is inalienable, this right is fundamental, this can never be snatched away. So with this conviction, I thank you all the speakers, all media representatives, all worthy guests, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish that in our future gatherings, we have more women faces. Today, I see very few. With this, I request you to move forward for refreshments and dinner. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. We also used to have the opportunity to ask any question or answer if somebody has anything to say. Then the floor is open. If not, then we will move forward. And